Okay. So this section is on recording now. And we're getting started. So, the topic for tonight is data governance, data lifecycle management. So we're going to understand the life cycle of a data as a data governance manager, data governance professional, or in the lens of data governance. Yeah. For those who have done project management, you know that at the early stage of our project management, we try to understand the life cycle of a project management life cycle. In data governance, we have a life cycle as well. In human being, we have life cycle. Everything have got a life cycle. Whatever has a beginning have an end. So we want to understand at each stage of a data, what do we do? Within the life cycle of a data, what do we do as data governance managers? Data governance management refers to the policies, processes, standard, and control that governs data from the moment it's created, collected, until it's archived or permanently deleted. As long as the data is alive, it must be governed in one way or the other. Uchenna, please, you put yourself on mute so that we don't distract us. So when data is governed very well, considering where it is, it's not the one governance policy to all aspects of our data life cycle. So at every life cycle, we have a special governance or special rule guiding the data. When it's governed very well, it ensures that the data is properly handled, properly secured, or stored legally, compliant, and ethically used and disposed when we don't need it again. See, there is no need of keeping data you don't need. Why are you keeping them for? It doesn't make sense. So you need to be disposed when we don't need it again. It's very important to do that. For instance, you see somebody say in a bank, you tell a bank, I want to close my account. Close my account. I don't want to bank with you again. I'm done. Of course, the bank is not supposed to keep that record again. Yeah. That's why you see some of these HR agencies, If they collect your data, they are looking for a job, helping you to secure a job. Once you are no longer with them, like a matter of 1 year and they've not gotten you a job, before they continue to keep your data, they will contact you. We still want to keep your data. You give consent. So you must always know what to do at any point while the data is alive. Okay, let's look at stages, various stages in data life cycle. Data collection stroke creation. When we create a data and collect a data, this is when data enters the organization. Enters the organization through customer registration. These are various ways we can collect a data. Customer registration, Internet of a Thing device like a smart meter, wearable, transaction system, POS, fintech app. These are various ways we collect data. Survey and third-party data feed. This is how we capture data. So under this should be our focus at this stage. At this stage of data creation and collection, this should be our focus. Lawful basis for collection. You must have a reason for collecting any data you are collecting. You can't just go and start telling people to give me your email and password, give me your date of birth. What is it for? Whatever data you are collecting, there must be a reason. For instance, I cannot tell you to go to our course portal and sign up. There is a reason, because you are our student. You were enrolling you, we are training you. So this is the reason. And we tell you duration of this data. I told you guys, if you are in this our web portal, we have given you a lifetime access. We've agreed a lifetime access, meaning that as long as we in business, we can keep your data so that you can access the content there anytime. Anytime you do not want again, you feel like you want us to delete your data, you can let us know you don't want to, and we'll delete your record if you don't want to. We are not keeping your data. And once we delete it, if you want to sign in again, you won't be able to sign because we don't have your record anymore. There must be a lawful reason for data collection. You must give consent before we take your data. Consent. Yeah? So before you sign in, we have privacy policy. We'll tell you that while you are signing in, you click. You see all those small things are data governance in action. Before you submit any form, you click. They'll give you privacy policy, you read it. If you don't click agree, you find out that the form that carries your data cannot be submitted until you agree to their terms and conditions. That's you, when you are clicking agree, that is a consent. You've given them consent to keep and use it the way they stated they are going to use it. But you know, so many of us were always in a haste. We don't think, because privacy policy, terms and conditions is always long. We don't even read them. We just keep bam. You know, because we hear that Facebook is paying money to money. So we don't want to care to read their, we just click. So as your data is within the Facebook, you have given consent for your data to be on Facebook. And then we'll have what we call data minimization. Can anybody tell us what is data minimization? Okay. Data minimization means you collect the amount of data that you need. You don't collect what you don't need. Yes, the amount of data you need to operate on a particular platform. That is what you need. That's what you collect. That's what you give you. For instance, in our cost portal, both of us here, we know you have already paid. And the purpose of you, and you are not like you are our staff, you are a student. So what?
We lost you for a bit.
Yeah, I know. You know, I had is network fluctuation. Sorry about that. Hmm? So can you see me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So like we are saying, minimization is you must collect the amount of data. So meaning that don't collect the data you don't need. You don't have any reason to use it or to keep it. For instance, like I was telling you, if I'm telling you to give us your credit card, your bank details, while you are trying to sign on in our cost portal, that is going to raise a red flag for you. You say, why are you demanding for my bank details? Is it part of the watching of the videos? So you don't collect what you do. And then transparency means you must state privacy policy. It must be in your system how you use data that is collected in any system that is you are giving you must know, it must be very transparent what they did. So these are you as a data governance officer, These are your area of focus. These are the area of your focus while trying to collect any data for usage to make sure your company or your organization do not fall into any kind of trouble. This is area we should be very interested in protecting the data and the image of your company. So under regulation like GDPR, organizations must collect only data that is necessary for a specific declared purpose. Yeah. Scenario here, a hospital collects full patient's medical history when only basic demographic information is required for appointment booking. Risk: over-collection, increased breach, exposure, and violate data minimization principle. Governance control: define mandatory versus optional field and conduct privacy impact assessment. Yeah. So if you need to gather more data that might not really be necessary, you might want to gather more data. You are capturing the data for a purpose, and you might want to use that purpose to capture more data, maybe for marketing purposes that might not really related. So that one is called optional. So do you see a form? So many times you are filling a form and they tell you the mandatory areas you need to put your details, and then you see optional areas you need to put your detail. If you go ahead and fill in the optional areas, they are not going to be, it's not a breach of data collection or data. At that point, you are the one who gave them consent. They've told you the mandatory area, what they really need. But others are good as well. But it's extremely important for an organization to capture what you need, not capture what you don't need. It's a breach of data minimization principle, according to GDPR. This GDPR, very soon we'll start talking about, we'll see all the data protection laws we are going to be dealing with. But GDPR is a very prominent data governance rule, general data protection and regulation. So it's very, very important, more especially in UK and Europe. So under this scenario, you see over collection of data increases your exposure to violate. So for you to minimize the violation, make sure you collect what you can. So you might just think it's a breach of law. It's a breach of data rule when you collect more than what you do and you don't specify. So everything should be transparent. That is under number one, collection, data collection. That is at that level of life cycle of a data. This is what you need to focus on. And this is the likelihood of what you are going to breach. The breach here, that is the risk. And governance control, this is, to avoid this risk, this is the control measure. Then we'll have data storage. Data is stored in so many ways. We can store data in databases, in cloud platform, data warehouses, on-premise server, backup system. So during the storage of data, we've collected this data, we store it in a very safe place to avoid and have it where we can constantly be using it, and equally to secure it from any kind of threats. So under this storage life cycle, what do you do as a governance professional? This is area of focus. Here is encryption. You need to encrypt. There's a built encryption layer at rest and in transit. When the data is at rest, that is there, build encryption transcript to protect it from attack, like cyber attack. Data need to be encrypted all the time. That is build authentication layers, building wall, firewall around the data. Then it's not only when the data is, even when the data is in transit. For instance, the data moves from one system to another system, maybe from CRM server or CRM to ERP, or from marketing to finance, data share, that we call it data sharing. As the data is on transit, moving from one system to another, that encryption still needs to be there. It still needs to be encrypted, because during the transcript, it can be attacked. So you still need to provide protection around the data, whether the data is resting, cooling down on the database, whether it's moving from one, that it must have encryption. And then we'll have access control. That you are working in an organization do not give you access to every data in the organization. Yes, you are in the marketing, you are the marketing officer, and for a marketing manager, you don't have access to financial data that should be within the finance department. So you do not have access. As a finance accountant, there's some data you don't have access to. Even as a marketing officer or sales officer within sales and marketing, there's still some data you don't have access within that marketing, within that sale. Even in finance, there's some data you don't have access to. That's what we call access control. What are you doing? What is your role in an organization? What you do determines the amount of data usage, the amount of data you are going to have access to. Not everything. So you must build access control. Who is defining the access control? You, the data governance manager. You and your team determine the access control of every person within the organization. So it's called, you can see, we have role-based permission. Role. Your role will determine the kind of access you are going to have. And data should be backed up all the time. Backup. You don't just leave your data. For instance, now you have data in database. That data in database should be backed up somewhere else. So that if there is any attack, somebody injects virus within the database and wipe all the data in the database, from the backup server, you can just pull them back. So Every data must have a backup. Backup. It's important. So you define this. This is what you should do when data is at this stage. So you are not going to be the one to do the backup, but what you are going to do is that you are going to state the guideline and monitor that is implemented. So all this encryption will have data engineers. They are the people that do the encryption. The access control and role-based, who are going to do it? Database administrators. You are going to, all of them, these are people you work with. They are going to be working within your guideline. And backups, who conduct this backup, provide the backups, necessary backup, data engineers. It's not your duty to do the technical, but you draft the guideline. And scenario here, customer payment details are stored in plain text. Risk here, database breach lead to financial fraud and regulatory penalties. And to control, governance control here is implement AEA and EAES encryptions. Like I said, encryption, you don't just leave it. It has to be encrypted and restricted access using rule-based access control. So that is how you govern this at this stage. This stage is storage. So within the storage, you know what you are doing. So when data is out of storage, data is within the process, data usage, that is processing. Under here is data is processed for analytics, AI, machine learning, training, reporting, customer segmentation, and decision making. So who is processing this data? Data analyst. You know, data analyst is working on this data. And what are the control or governance focus here? You should be focusing on purpose limitation. Purpose limitation. So they do not use more than they need. The amount of data they work on is purpose driven. What are you doing? Then you know the amount of data you are using. Don't go beyond that. Ethical review. Ethical review must be, whatever you do must be reviewed ethically, monitored to make sure there's compliance. Audit trial. Every activity must be audited. So, and bias monitoring as well, to make sure there's no bias or misuse of any kind. And what are the governance, the risk and governance in place here? For instance, a fintech startup trains an AI model using biased historical lending data. Risk, discriminatory outcome against certain demographic groups. These are risks. So the control measure here is bias detection framework and explainability tool. Because AI is very good, but AI is very high bias, very biased. Bias is that it can give you wrong information. So, as for instance, if AI is, these days, AI work on our behalf, it can cause So you must have a way to regulate it. For instance, the AI deployed in Microsoft, in Facebook might provide wrong information in Facebook. All of us now, if you go to Facebook, you see kind of AI there working on behalf of them, kind of suggesting for some keywords. When you want to type it, suggest some keywords, want to make a comment, this AI working. At times they can provide wrong information or something that is not intended to be. So in a situation like that, these are risky environment. You must make sure there is governance control in place, like this detection of bias activities within AI must be in place. So you have a framework for that. That is ethical use of AI. This is area that a lot of organizations are still struggling with AI these days. AI is still a very new technology. So we are trying to, walk around to see the best ethical use of AI, which is another aspect of career, which is coming up, ethical use of AI. People, for now, we're still looking whether it's going to fall under data governance or whether ethical use of AI is going to be on its own. But for now, it's still part of the data governance. Then, data sharing. Organizations today are structured to share data seamlessly. You know what we call enterprise resources or enterprise applications. Enterprise applications are like all these CRM system, ERP system, ITSM system. All these systems, we call them, even e-commerce system, we call them enterprise applications. Within this enterprise application, there is high level of integration. The integration is that all these systems will be able to share data within the organization. You see marketing, you see finance, you see ITSM, you see e-commerce portal. It's still, you find out that almost information there is about a customer. A customer purchase. When customer purchase, it becomes a financial record that needs to be shared with the finance department. At early stage, you see that is the marketing. The marketing is handling this information because they are going to do a lot of campaign towards this, targeting these customers or lead. Once they become lead, they come into a CRM system, then sales representatives will follow them up to convert them to customer. And they become customer, they start bringing money. So you see their data start moving around different units. You see the same person. So data keeps sharing from one hand to another. As the data is moving around, one data set is moving around different systems, it needs to be protected as well. That is when we say data being in transit. So data may be shared with internal department, different departments, just like I mentioned. It can be shared with vendors. It can be shared with regulators. it can be shared with strategic partners. During sharing this data, attack can happen on this data set. So many of us remembered that this email, somebody attacked and they hacked Hillary Clinton's email when she was the Secretary of State. It was when the email is sending email. You see, email is somebody sending email from one department to the another department. So this could be classified information, secret information. You know, American government might be one to send email to Nigerian government. UK government might want to send information to American government, email, classified documents. During this process, there are so many hackers waiting, trying to know the kind of information UK is sharing with Nigeria, or Nigeria sharing with different countries. You know, these are the things. Of telephone call. You know that call is still data, voice data, video data, all these things are data. So while I'm talking to you here, somebody can hijack, and this could be a very sensitive meeting we're having here. So we still need to protect the kind of data that is on transit, something like that. The governance focus is data sharing agreement. First, we must agree what can be shared, what amount of what these two departments must agree what they need to share between the two departments. We can say this is what we are sharing with you. You only need transaction aspect of this customer's data. You get a transaction. Then with another department, you will say you don't need to know about the financial aspects. What are you looking? You don't need it. So you must know the purpose, why they are needed. So we have agreement. They have third-party risk assessment. Yes, we agree to share it with third party. For instance, we here, outside even our department, want to share our data with another third party. Or for instance, we want to start doing exchange service with the University of Nigeria. They are third party to UniF. They are not part of UniF. So if you want to share information with University of Nigeria, UniF must assess the vulnerability before we can share data with University of Nigeria. If they don't have good system, if they are going to be, if they are so vulnerable, they are going to compromise, we might say we are not going to. So whenever you want to have a data governance, you must carry out a risk evaluation, third-party risk assessment to know how vulnerable such sharing is going to. If it's so vulnerable, then you say no. You don't want to compromise the property of your company because data is a big property, asset. Cross-border transfer compliance. Does it meet the compliance? So these are the things we need to understand before sharing data with third party or sharing data as well. These are key things we need to focus as a data governance officer. Determine what needs to be shared, the vulnerability. Under framework like CCPA, organization must disclose how data is shared and allow consumers to opt out. Scenario: a university shares students' data with a research partner, just like I said, UniF with University of Nigeria, with a research partner without formal agreement. Number one is breach of confidentiality and contractual violation. Yeah. That's what that means is we sharing. Okay, let me give you a clear scenario here. There's a minister of technology, information and technology in Nigeria, and they said this minister is not a graduate. They said the minister did not graduate from University of Nigeria, and they said University of Nigeria shared information regarding that. If they do not have consent, like it depends on the kind of government body that's wanted. For instance, a newspaper went to University of Nigeria and tell them they want to see, and University of Nigeria shared the minister's record. That is a breach of contracts. It's a breach. They do not have to. That's why university cannot send their transcript to another university without your consent. You are the one that need to give consent before they share your transcript. They send your transcript to another university. So we should know what is breach of one. So some of the things we do, because maybe so many of us, the country is not properly regulated, things nobody cares about, breach or this and that, but it's wrong. The only person that can go, what, like a police department, and they have a warrant from court that's mandating the University of Nigeria to disclose the record of the said minister. That's the only way the minister's information within the university can be shared to a third party. That's why a policeman cannot just come to your house and say, I'm a police officer, and come in. It's a breach. Doesn't have that right. They only need to come into your house with a search warrant from a court. So for University of Nigeria to disclose the minister's record to a newspaper, not even a recognized newspaper, is wrong. It's a breach of contract. So it's data breach. And if even some of us do not even know our rights, if somebody like the minister takes it up, the professor, the VC of the University of Nigeria can lose his job as a professor. Although the matter is already in court, he can lose their job as the VC. And I said the VC is denying that he didn't know anything, that he didn't authorize such access. So these are some of the things we need to understand. Is within data protection and data governance as well. So breach of confidentiality and contractual violation. Hospital do not disclose patient's record. You know, somebody come, you tell the person that this year said has a HIV. You don't do that. You don't have rights to disclose somebody's record. For instance, you work with Zenith Bank and your record, your medical record is with Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, and they release it to they want to accept. That is, it can't happen. Don't have right to release such. Before such can happen, you need to authorize your record, your health record, to be released. Yeah, you see that I need to authorize it. So in such a situation, we need to put in place data processing agreements and vendor audit. We must have an agreement before any data can be shared. This is a very serious issue in data governance. Although here it's common, but we back in Africa, it happens a lot. Once they see is an important personality, is a big man or a bigger, they will just release their data without any it's wrong. Then we have the fifth life cycle of a data, which is archiving. Data that is no longer actively used may be archived. Yeah, when data is no longer actively used, it can be archived for regulatory compliance, legal evidence, or historical analysis. So we can just put it in the archive. Now, whenever is needed, we can go to archive and get them out. Governance focus around data that is in archive, retention schedule. How long is it supposed to be in the archive? Reduce access permission. Yeah, the amount of access, we need to determine the amount of access. Is no longer, because it's no longer in use. If it's no longer in use, then those people that need to access it must be limited. So anybody who wants to use it must state the reason why they are not using it, because it's no longer operational data. It's an archive data in the archive. It can be there for the purpose of monumental or historical, as a legacy evidence. And legal holding management. So have a legal holding management determine the legality of and how long you need to be there. So there must be a legal binding authorization as long as in the archive. Example of such scenario is transaction record. A transaction record must be retained for 7 years due to financial regulation. So in this case, you see, you tell a bank you are no longer banking with this bank. And like I said earlier, they need to delete your system. Under this agreement, because it's special case, transaction record is not just ordinary data. It contains, because it might want to be revisited because it's transaction. Transaction has happened. It's not just ordinary data. So is agreement. When a transaction happens, it now becomes an agreement between you and another person. So agreement has taken place financially. So it's not only you that is, so deleting such financial record is not only your financial, the bank equally have a duty bound there. You did business with bank. So even bank is keeping that record, they are keeping their own record. They are not just keeping their record, but they are keeping evidence of what happened between you and them. In such a situation, there should be a record. It has to go to archive, not just deletion. So you see, when a data should go to archive and when a data should go to deletion. Deletion is deleting it, it's no longer in use. And archive is you archive it because it can be revisited. A court might say, we want this evidence, where it is. If you have deleted it, they might say you deleted it on purpose because there's something you are hiding. So the risk here, deleting too early. Like I said, deleting and archiving. So deleting too early, regulatory breach. When you delete too early, you breach some regulations. So keeping too long, unnecessary risk exposure. So these are things that you need to look at. So it must have a balance. Then you have deletion through destruction. Deleting the data and destructing it. End of life process include secure wiping, physical destruction, anonymization, pseudonymization. These are all the ways you can delete or destroy a data that is no longer in use. And while doing it, you have to be careful while we are trying to destroy a transaction data, because it's always comes with high legal problems. So these are where data governance people, they are needed to take decision or to advise. Governance focus is rights to erasure compliance. You must know the right to erasure compliance, secure disposal verification, and audit documentation. Some data, if you want to destroy it, you make sure that it's destroyed and cannot be, maybe after destruction, somebody have access to it. My data set, I can say I want it to be destroyed. It belongs to me. And I'll make sure that it's destroyed. And nobody can have access to it again. Under GDPR, individuals have the rights to be forgotten. You have the right to be forgotten. Like I said about my data, I want my data set to be destroyed. My personal data set, I might say I want it to be erased. I want to be forgotten. I don't want anything about me to be remembered again. And yeah, that may be when I die, I want my memory, everything about me to be wiped off. That is my will, and it should be respected. So under data protection law, you see, on the individual have the rights to be forgotten. A scenario, unique comments, a customer requests account deletion, but the system only deletes the front end profile, while back-end lock still contain personal data. Risk: no compliance and regulatory file. Governance control: automated deletion workflow and deletion audit reports. So if we're deleting a data set, it's not just the data is in the database. So if you want to delete a data set, it's not just on the front end. The main place where the data is domiciled is on the database, not on the front of the website. So these are the things. And automated deletion workflow and deletion audit. So if we are in a situation where is the right, because in most cases it's not their right, looking at the law say that too early to be deleted. If in that too early to delete, you know that the customer do not have rights. But in a situation where they have the right, then when such data is being deleted, it's your duty to make sure there is deletion audit report, meaning sure that the data is wiped out. There is no more remnants of that data within the system. So, why data lifecycle management matters? From what we'll be saying, you can see that the importance of data management lifecycle, because this helps us to know how to handle data at any point. You might think is looking at what we have covered already, you should know that, yeah, that these data regulatory data managers, they have some work to do. It's not just as simple as you might see it, because it doesn't have, it's not involved with coding. A lot is involved here. So why it matters: without life cycle control, data accumulates unnecessarily. Storage costs increases. So there's no need of keeping what we don't need because of the storage. If you know the amount of money paid in the for all these cloud infrastructures to keep your data, is unbelievable. Let me tell you guys the reason I stopped using Zoom. I used to use Zoom before. I said, no, I'm not going to use Zoom again. Now they started asking me to pay because I record videos. I keep them. And before you know, they now started asking me to start paying more because I've exceeded my limit, my storage limit. I am not using free Zoom. I use their advanced Zoom, and they still came back to ask me to still pay more money because of the storage. I have to do my evaluation and find out that with Google Meet, I get trillions of terabytes running of access, limit storage facility. So I moved to, and Google Meet has been so good, I'm not gonna lie. So the point I'm making here is that the storage cost is not something, it's not small when it comes to data, you keeping what you don't need. And regulatory risk multiplies. As you are keeping it, you need to, because as long as that data set is within your domain, if anything happens, if it's misused, although you are not even using it again, but somebody can still misuse it. So these are things you need to consider. Security vulnerability expand as you are keeping it. The security, you can be exposed to vulnerability, and ethical risk persists. So these are all the issues without control. If you have control, yeah, you can say this data, we don't need it, we delete it. That's control. You have control measure over things you don't need. The one need to archive, you archive it. The one that needs to be deleted, you delete them. So that is what we mean by control. Effective DLM reduces legal exposure, cyber security risk, operational inefficiency, and reputational damage. So this is the gain for data lifecycle effective data lifecycle management. Legal and regulatory implications. Global regulation requires life cycle management is a compulsory under global regulation. Yeah. Under, we've already covered retention limits, right to deletion, lawful processing, and security obligation. Is regulatory requirement that you must do this. Every organization must comply. I told you guys, the reason why companies must hire you as a data protection officer, as a data management officer, it's not because they like you. Sorry, it's because they need to be compliant. The reason why a company should set up a data protection or data governance unit in their organization and employ a team of people, at least, depending, one person might, but at least they have a team. You must have a small team. This is the reason. Legal regulatory implication. You have rights, this retention limit, you must always show that you comply to retention limit, show that you comply to rights to deletion, show that you comply to lawful processing, show that you are compliant to security obligations of the data within your domain. And if you don't do that, this is it. Non-compliance can lead to heavy fine, lawsuits, loss of public trust, and operational shutdown. You see what you can get yourself into as an organization, a company who refuses to build your data management unit. All these four aspects could happen to you as an organization. Life cycle risk by stage. Under collection, data collection, examples of risk: collecting unnecessary personal data. These are risks if you don't comply to data governance. So you must know what to collect. Storage, unauthorized database access. If you do not comply, this could be the risk you could face. The reason why you must comply and have data governance officers and units. These are the risks for non-compliance. Usage, bias AI decision making. Sharing, data leakage via the third-party vendor. You want to share, it can leak and somebody can hijack Why the data? It's just like moving money from one bank to another bank. We all know that banks, they use bullion van to move money from one place to another place. You see they don't use ordinary pickup. They don't use message. They don't use bots. They use heavy bullion van. Inside that bullion van, there is a big safe with a complex lock. You cannot open the lock anyhow, where the money is. And then they have armed guarded policemen. Do you see the level of authentication around the money? That is the way data is. That is the way we shield data, encryption, while data is on transit, to avoid data leakage, whether it's data sharing, archiving. If you don't comply while trying to archive, you might retain data beyond legal period, and you can even get a lawsuit. Why should this data be here for this long? And deletion, incomplete or insecure disposal. You might say that you think that you've deleted the data, and you find out that because there is no deletion audit report, you find out that it's incomplete deletion. There are some fragments of that that are still remaining, and that can become a problem. So these are the risks. No organization wants to face this risk. So data governance control across the life cycle. Yeah, a strong life cycle framework requires structured control to apply consistently across the life cycle stages. A storage framework includes data classification policy. These are some of the framework we need to keep in place to make sure that there are good control measures. We need a document like data classification policies, data retention schedules, encryption standard, access monitoring, secure deletion control protocol, periodic lifecycle audits, vendor risk management control. Okay, let's look at data classification policy. Under data classification policy, purpose is to categorize data based on sensitivity and risk level. So that is classification. We have a document help us to classify data based on their sensitivity and risk level. Example of classification include public, internal, confidential. So you see, these are the way a data can be classified. Are we classifying a data that the data is a public, like marketing brochure is a public data? Internal reports is not meant to be public. When somebody all of a sudden pastes company's internal reports on social media, that is a serious breach, a data breach. But me now, I upload the university marketing brochure on my Facebook, on WhatsApp. It's a marketing, they will even be happy to see me sharing their marketing brochure or marketing banner because it's a public. So you must be able to classify data very well. Confidentiality, customer record, like a patient record, is a confidential. So these are the way you classify them. Highly sensitive and restricted, like health record, financial data, biometric data. These are sensitive. So these are ways you can classify a data. Practical example of this classification, you see a hospital classify patients' medical record as highly sensitive. Fintech platform label KYC, that is know your customer document, as restricted. Because when you say know your customer, it contains a lot of detail about the customer. And HR system flag employee salary data as confidential. Do you know that the person working in the, you are working in the same company with somebody and you don't know how much the person is earning unless the person tells you? HR do not have the right to tell another person working in the same company how much I earn. Yes, I've worked with some people for years and I do not know how much they earn. They don't know how. I've worked with 3 different people in this, some people in the same department. All of us are business analysts, but I didn't know how much all of us are earning. I find out that one lady, which is almost very brilliant, is earning lower than most of the people within the unit. Nobody discloses that. So it is for you to go and start demanding that how much is they don't disclose how much employee earn. Is a confidential record. Governance impact of this classification determines encryption level. You need to determine the encryption level, define access permissions, set retention requirements, and guide incident response priority. So under this classification, when you are trying to create a data classification policy, this is what you need to do. That is governance impact. Then you come to retention schedule. The purpose is to determine how long should data be kept before deleting or archiving. There should be a record, a document that is called detention schedule. It's part of the record you need to keep as a data governance specialist. Practical example, financial transaction record retained for 7 years. You must know. Employee payroll record retained for 6 years. Marketing lead delete after 24 months of inactivity. So you cannot use marketing retention to govern employee retention or to govern financial retention. They have different retention schedule. You must understand their retention schedule. Why? The impact: reduce storage costs, ensure regulatory compliance, and prevent unnecessary risk exposure. Then we have encryption standard. The purpose of this encryption standard is to protect data confidentiality at rest and in transit. You must provide the encryption standard every data need. You have to determine the encryption standard. Practical example, EAS 256 encryption for database, TLS encryption for web application, end-to-end encryption for messaging app like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is using end-to-end encryption, meaning the encryption is very high. It's very difficult for someone to break in and tamper with your WhatsApp. That's why WhatsApp now is one of the, while making it this, although even people hack your WhatsApp, this thing must be you that will give them access. But if you are very diligent in managing your muscle, you don't keep joining group or unauthorized, even the group you don't know, without sharing, this where it can easily be, when it gets compromised, it must be you that will get it compromised. But WhatsApp is such a way that it's highly encrypted that people can hardly intercept your message or your call. Encrypted backups stored in secure cloud vault. So the governance impact, while this encryption standard is to protect against unauthorized access, reduce breaches, severity, demonstrate regulatory compliance. Yeah. So that is the encryption standard here and why we do the encryption. So what you do, you need to set this standard, against different data sets you are managing or you are protecting. So you are the protection officer and there must be encryption standard. Like you see here, practical example. You see, these are different data sets. They have different encryption standard. You need to set this different encryption standard. And then access monitoring. The purpose of access monitoring is to ensure only authorized individuals have access to sensitive data. And this is the practical example. You see different access control. This one is role-based access control. This multi-factor authentication. This is privileged access management. This is automated alert for unusual login behavior. And this is quarterly access review. All these are regulatory measures, control over data while monitoring data. So you need to different access. Scenario, a finance employee download 10,000 customers record at midnight. Without monitoring, data leak goes unnoticed. With monitoring, system triggers alert for investigation. Yeah. So this kind of thing must be different access control. Like under this downloading customer record, it could trigger alerts, automated alerts for unusual behavior. So this kind of data, you could build this automated alert around this kind of unusual behavior. Downloading, this is an unusual behavior. Any unusual behavior that doesn't have, you should trigger alert. So you decide the kind of monitoring procedure that need to be, like these are the practical example, access control and the rest of them. So the governance impact is to prevent insider threats, detect suspicious activity, and support forensic investigation. And then we'll have secure detection protocol. Under secure detection protocol, we'll have the purpose to ensure that data is permanently and irreversibly removed. Secure deletion protocols. So, practical example, secure data wiping, NIST standard, physical hard driving shredding, automated write to erasure workflow, and deletion certificates logged for incorporation. Under GDPR, individuals have the rights to request erasure of their data. Yes. Risk: deleting only front-end profile while back-end retain personnel. This is non-compliance. It's a breach. When somebody say, I want my data deleted in your HR, I don't want to have my this thing in your, then you delete the front end and leave the back end. That is a breach of data, is a data breach. So we equally have periodic life cycle audits. All these I'm mentioning are different frameworks for data governance within the data life cycle. The purpose of periodic life cycle audits is to evaluate compliance across all life cycle stages. Practical examples here is quarterly data retention audit, annual vendor compliance audit, random access control review, AI bias, and model audit check. Audit checklists may include: is data being collected lawfully? Are retention schedule enforced? Are deletion log verified? Are vendor agreements up to date? This is audit, the kind of audit you carried out while monitoring, more especially deletion. Impact of this: detect control gap, demonstrate regulatory readiness, and reduce litigation risk. And then vendor risk management control. The purpose of vendor risk management control is to manage third-party risk while sharing data. Scenario: security questionnaire before onboarding a vendor. Data processing agreements, SOC1 iOS 27001 compliance verification, cross-border data transfer assessment, ongoing vendor monitoring. These are all that need to be put in place. Vendor risk management control. These are control measures a governance officer needs to put in place while trying to share data to third party. You need to put all these practical examples, things you need to put under check, to checkmate data sharing. If you don't have this kind of control measure, don't authorize any data sharing. You must have a control measure before data can be shared, because if you are the data protection officer and if anything happens to any of those data, you are going to be held liable. But if you have this kind of checks in place, anybody who is sharing, although if you have it in all these things need to be complied. They need to be, if they comply under all this, then if anything happens, then it's not going to be a fault because you provided all this. Then you have to check audit, look at how all this protocol is being broken, because these are serious protocols in order to control data sharing, any kind of risk that can come out of data sharing. So under CCPA, organizations remain accountable for low vendor use shared data. You see here, accountable. When it's organization, they are talking about the data protection officer, because you are in the organization, you are in charge of data protection, not every person in the organization. So if anything goes wrong, if you do not put in this required control while sharing data to third party is going to not come out good for you. Scenario, a marketing vendor suffer a breach exposure, a breach exposing customer data. If vendor due diligence was not conducted, primary organization remain liable. Just like I said, liability, you remain liable. You can go to jail. So, control map for lifestyle stages. Under collection, this is control you should apply. Classification and consent control. Under storage, encryption, and access monitoring. All this control, we've already discussed them above here. This is just a map. Just to streamline it in a map. Usage, audit log, and access control. Sharing, vendor risk management, archiving, retention schedule enforcement, deletion, secure deletion protocol. So this is what you need to put in place to control data within any of this life cycle. At any of this life cycle, this is what you need to do as a data protection officer. This is the full data life cycle, and this is what you need to do. So, the insights here is that governance control must be documented. It's not by, it must be documented. Data governance control must be documented. It must be enforced technically. After documenting it, you make sure you are the enforcement officer to make sure that what you documented is being carried out. Not only that you enforce it to be carried out, you must monitor it continuously. That all this documented, enforced technically, you must monitor. Not only monitor it, you must audit actions. So, data lifecycle management is not a policy document. It's an operational discipline. You don't just document it as a policy. This will help you to manage data in the organization. Yeah. These are practical scenarios of all this we've just been explaining. Fintech company collects company data. Poor lifecycle management. Poor lifecycle management. The fintech company keep data indefinitely. Change data without vendor risk assessment. Fail to delete record after account closure. All this is poor data management. You see here, poor lifecycle management under this fintech company. They do not have data protection officer because they have data protection officer. They cannot keep data indefinitely. They cannot share data without vendor risk assessment. They cannot fail to delete record after account closure. The result is they are faced with serious regulatory fine, breach of exposure, and customer distrust. This is the result of this lack of data protection officer in the organization. And strong lifecycle management. If they employ you, for instance, a fintech company who find themselves in this mess and gets a serious regulatory fine for this poor management, and all of a sudden they wake up from their slumber and say, CEO Ebere, we are hiring you today to deal with this mess we've caused ourselves. What do you do? Ebere, what do you do? Are you sleeping?
Almost.
You wake up, you are in a serious you said you needed engagement. Is that what you said?
I've had 12-hour shifts twice. I'm tired. Sorry, what's the question again? Sorry, please.
Okay, I'm not gonna bother you because you just needed to give me because I want to close. So okay, let me go there. I said example of a scenario base. The scenario here is that a fintech company has been operating without a data protection unit, without a data governance unit, without a data protection manager. This is the mess they got themselves into. They keep data indefinitely. They share data without vendor risk assessment. They fail to delete data, delete record after account closure, and they got themselves into this big mess. They are being fined almost $1 million for this regulatory fine, a breach of exposure, and customer distrust. It's all over the news, and the customers are leaving. This is a big, for instance, a company like Monzo or a company like Revolut find themselves in this kind of mess and then hire you as a data protection manager to turn things around for them. So if you are a clever data protection officer, this is what you need to put in place. This is strong data lifecycle management. You need to put in place this measure. Collect all necessary KYC data. That is know your customer.
Yes.
Encrypt and limit access. Delete data after legal retention period and maintain complete audit log. This is what you need to do to remedy these their flaws. And if you've done that, the result is going to be regulatory compliance, reduced breach exposure, and strong confidence. Yeah?
I was thinking that, okay, like when this happened in the hospital, in my NHS trust, what they did was that they did all what you said, but sent individual emails to people affected and asked for, and said if they needed to talk, they should, they should come talk to them. That's what they did.
Yeah, that sending email is not it's not you've caused the damage. That's not that when you cause it, that sending email is not. The main thing is do what you didn't do well. They're already charging you. You're already under a fine. You already, when you send it, it's not gonna change the fact that you are going to pay the fine. I see some companies getting fined $100 million for data breach. Do you know how much Facebook paid when they breached? What Facebook paid, we are running into billions for data breach. So what you need to do is to put things right. You don't need to start sending email. You need to hire strong data protection officers.
Yes, I said after everything you said, they sent emails. After the cycle, that's the collection, everything.
Yeah, that one is good, but it's not. That is just even if you don't send email and you do what, it's not gonna change anything because you've done what you've. That one you are doing is customer support.
Yes, it's damage control.
Yeah. So um That's it. These are the exercise, and key takeaway is data has a beginning and data has an end. Governance must apply at every stage while you keep data, managing data. Regulatory compliance depends on the life cycle control. Ensure deletion is as important as secure storage. Life cycle thinking reduces risk and enhance accountability. So this is where we are going to end for tonight. And tomorrow we'll look at the framework, some of the templates involved, how to create one. Because all these you need to create documentation. Yeah, so that's it for tonight. I think some of you already sleeping.
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, everybody. Sir, when you were at the beginning, you mentioned the case of a minister that was removed at a time, and UNN shared his information, which you said it was a data breach. But I know that under the Freedom of Information Act of 2011, that government agencies, in fact, even private institutions generally are allowed to share certain information
Certain.
when,
Yes,
yes,
certain.
yes, certain information, not all,
Mm-hmm.
to the public. And also under the NDPA, which is the Nigerian Data Protection Act of 2023, it also says that, I don't know the particular section, but I know there's a section that says when it is necessary for a task carried out in public interest,
Yeah, but there
it
should
does not
be,
constitute
it's not anybody who
breach.
comes to, there must be a consent as well. Certain, say certain, not somebody come here and say you want to see my record. You go to hospital and say, I want to see my record. You provide my record because certain.
No,
And
no, no.
nobody can provide you with my record.
No, sir. But if I am a public office holder, for example, and
It's
then
only the law, like I said, police, yeah, they are doing their job, but they cannot barge into my house without authorization
without
from
a
court.
warrant. I know, sir. Those are we could say those ones are classified information. But I'm talking generally. For example, going to school, if I project myself as maybe a journalist, and then I go back to I'm a public office holder, and then some kind of journalist decide to write my school and say we are seeking to obtain the information concerning Perpetua because she said this, and we are suspecting that it is not. I think because in the past I've had to write Board of Internal Revenue, yeah, because we were seeking for a particular information. They gave us
Yeah,
that information, and it was regarding
it,
the chairman of the board. So I was seeking for an information concerning the chairman of the board. I was given that information. I came under the Freedom of Information Act.
yeah, that one is different.
Okay.
Information like somebody's performance in the office is a public domain. He was a public officer. So if you are seeking information about a public officer, that public is sat in a public office. University, my record in the university is not a public domain. Nobody cannot just work. Yeah, me, whether he's a student or not, is different from I want to see his results. No. He
But if
attended the university or not, he attended. But I want to see his results. No.
Okay.
I want to see his certificate authorization before you share my certificate, or you tell him to go to me. Or only if the court has given order.
like a
Maybe there is a
subpoena.
probe. Nobody can just not working on that and then the university can share my record to anyone. No.
Okay, except it's with consent. It's just like references. They would ask you, like here, they will ask you, are you okay? Do you give consent for us to ask this professor to
Yeah,
information
but
about you?
the minister give consent. When you are, let me tell you, when you are, well, let me tell you,
Okay.
when you are seeking a job, you go to Zenith Bank, you apply for a job, they tell you to submit this thing, you submit everything, and then Zenith Bank has it because they need to, there's some concept form that they'll say that any information you submitted can be verified under your consent. You've given, you might not know when you sign all those things because you want to get it done. That is consent. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
But in a situation where no, somebody just witch hunting goes there, how do they get the consent form?
Confidentiality. There's confidentiality.
So you
Yeah,
don't
but
show somebody's confidence. That is a breach of trust.
okay, so where I'm coming from, yeah, confidentiality is actually not absolute. There is nothing that is absolute because if it's necessary for
I
it,
didn't say it's absolute.
okay.
I said I gave you instances like, yes, the court has given injunction or court has given authorization or something like that. Yeah, that is the law. When the law is applied, but not that anybody, you are witch hunter, will just go in and even the medical record, which is very sensitive. If order come from government or from court, they are going to release their medical record.
Definitely.
So I didn't say correct. So you must know where the controls are and where they are not. So if you are here, you don't if you are managing somebody's record, nobody just come. I'm a journalist. He start harassing you. You release. No, you don't do that.
Or family member.
Even from nobody.
Okay, I understand all of that, sir. But where I'm coming from is it is the same Nigerian Data Protection Act that says that personal information about someone can be released if it's necessary for tasks carried out in the interest of the general public. For example, that minister of a person was serving a public and the information the press were seeking was carried out in the interest of the public.
So how do we know that the press? So because you have to maybe like say go to court and get authorization. You can't just go and get because you're a press and any place you go they start opening their record because you're a press. It's not. Even if it's for the interest of there's some you need to know what is the interest of the person and what is witch hunt. Between the
this
two,
is like remember this is Nigeria
and interest
too.
of the people.
No, it's not
Because
about
if
Nigeria. We're
you would have
discussing
seen that all the people in the public domain, all their record will be everywhere in social media. Yes, that I mean in public office doesn't mean that I cannot be protected because I'm in the public Yeah. So that is it. So all the people in the public domain, their interests are being protected as well. And that's why we have regulations like this. That's why I have data governance to
But
protect.
there,
Because
there,
so many of us
there
are
are,
vulnerable. So many of us are ignorant. And
I
again,
also,
data protection doesn't even, it doesn't, Nigerians, they do not even know what is data protection.
They don't follow it.
exactly, that's what I wanted us to know,
And that's
because
why I said that that's Nigeria.
no,
Because
no,
in
no, but
Nigeria,
if we're talking about whether on Nigeria or not, at this point, I'm speaking, I'm coming from the angle of the law, whether or not they are going to apply it. Because overriding public interest is also a thing. And in the case of that minister, I'll keep making reference to it. It's an overriding public interest sake. Now, like Mr. Charles said, it's not just anybody coming. These people must be vetted. You must know who is requesting for this information. It's not for everybody. However, when this particular person or group of persons are able to access this information, it could be shared to the public because it is done in the interest of, or it is done for overriding public interest and not for personal vendetta.
Yeah, but if you see that, you see even the VC was writing a disclaimer. They did not give it consent. They did not authorize the sharing of the professors. That if that's the case, why is then the VC writing that disclaimer? They did never give that consent. So it means the record, the record officer, the record management officer shared that information. So it was a compromise. That data was compromised, and it shouldn't be. So if they are looking for that, there's people who employ this data, this minister. If there are like people who employ this minister are the people who are seeking for that difference. But nobody cannot just come say, I want to see minister's record. For instance, the federal government requested it because the guy is serving federal government. The federal government need to say, I want to see the record of this minister. Yeah? Then the UNN should release the record to the federal government, not to you, Perpetua. Because the minister is not working for you, he's working for federal government. So we should be able to distinguish between witch hunting and public interest. I'm not encouraging that he didn't have a but yeah, he shouldn't have, because he was a journalist or those who witch hunting him, political motivated, that went there to, in a situation like that. I think the record money, the registrar, I don't know if they sacked the registrar, but I think the registrar, UNN registrar, suffered because of that particular action. So it's not that way. It's not as you think. All right. We'll keep our arguments in next class. So, okay, Tunde, you are raising your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Thank you very much for your time. Very precious time. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate you.
Yeah.
Are we going to have access to this document, this file?
It's not classified.
Okay.
You see, it's already in public domain.
This very one.
Yeah, you can see it. Have you not been? You already have access to it.
No. Is this something we can download?
Yes, I will share the
Thank you, sir.
notes. Yeah, I share my lesson notes. Charity, you are raising your hand as well.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Please, I want to know, as a data governance officer or protection officer, and somehow there is a leak of information or breach on personal data, are there consequences on
Of
your
course,
own
you
part?
see, if you paid attention, you see there's a liability. If the data get compromised under your company, yes, the company need to be pay a huge amount of money. That's fine. You know, it's going to be the company, but once
Okay.
the company,
You
you
agree
know
with
that if you are the data protection officer,
that? Okay.
then you know that it's either your job is you are losing your job, or if they are drilling it down, if somebody needs to pay the price, if somebody needs to go to jail, it's not the company that is going to jail, it's you that's going to go to jail. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but most cases, it's going to come to a fine. Company is going to pay a fine. I think I captured this somewhere here. You know, you need to pay a fine. So when there is such
Data
such a,
leak, data breach.
yeah, somebody needs to pay a fine, or the company. So yeah,
Or they will have training. Sometimes they have training, then they put it like in health, like where I work, they will do a detox.
you see the outcome. You see here, I say, see here, poor management. This is the result.
Okay.
Regulatory fine, most cases is fine. They charge company a ridiculous amount of money. You know, maybe a lot of banks have been finding themselves in this situation. Like
Oh,
Monzo Bank paid almost 50 million pounds because of lack of KYC, know your customer. You know, it wasn't properly documented, they didn't capture it, and they paid 50 million pounds. Monzo Bank here in UK. This is, you see here, every company, you know what is, know your KYC, know your customer. That is, you need to collect your ID,
every data.
national ID. You need to collect your data, all the necessary, your proof of address. All these things are know your customer. They need to collect all these very well. But some of this fintech, once you just register, the first thing is just for you to start bringing money, make deposit. They don't clear care about KYC. But you find out some of these days, you can join all these digital bank. If you don't submit this key document, your account cannot go live until you submit all the KYC, know your customers document. Once you submit them, then the account, and they verify it. Part of KYC is now becoming biometric, finger, facial capture. If you are using all this new generation digital bank like Revolut, and you will capture your face as well, make a video of yourself. All these are part of KYC, know your customer, so that if anything happen, bam, they can track you down immediately. So that is
All
it.
right.
So
Thank you,
if
sir.
if a company do not capture any breach of something like this, KYC and the rest of them, then regulatory fine from different, sources. Can be from CBN, it can be from depending on where the company is or country, you get regulatory fine. And regulatory fine is not small money. It's regulatory fine that's capable of closing the company down. If Monzo is not a big bank and they charge them 50 million pounds, do you know what 50 million pounds is? So, of course, you know that you already, if they just allow you to go like that, you'll be very happy. If you are the data management or you are in charge of data protection in Monzo. So, that data governance is very hot in the market. It's very good data governance officer, know what you are doing. It's very hot up here. It's hotter than even data analysis. Yeah. So thank you. I think I've addressed your question, Charity. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, we still have some aspects to deal with. So we'll stop it here. We'll finish up later. Yeah. So this data protection, if you see anyone, is very good for lawyers who very
Yeah.
good for them. So all right. Good night.
Nice, sir.